We've been talking a lot lately about the difficulty of how hard it is to find the condition of something you're selling. And I suggest that if you're selling something used or pre-owned, as eBay likes to call them, or pre-loved, as eBay really likes to call used items, if you're selling something like that, I think one of the most important parts of your listing is the condition. Your buyer will agree with that. The buyer wants to know, what exactly am I buying? You say this is used. I want to know how used. Pictures don't always tell the whole story. But for some reason, eBay seems to think we can rely on pictures to let the buyer know the condition. And I just suggest that's not completely true. You've got to take a picture of every flaw. You need to. You have to. Your buyer wants that. If you've taken a picture of every flaw, then your buyer's thinking, well, they've shown me all this. This is probably all that's wrong with it. And then they look at the price and judge, given these flaws, is it worth this price? But especially on a cell phone, it is extremely difficult when you're a buyer or seller to look at a description of something someone's selling and find the actual condition. Now you can see the condition of good or new inbox or something like that, but to see the details of what the seller wrote about the item is pretty difficult to get to on a cell phone. It's actually not that easy on a computer, at least for new eBayers, and they're the ones that are going to get trapped in this. They're thinking, well, I guess there's nothing really wrong with it, or they would have told me. No, you just don't really know how to get to the condition. So I think, and I'm throwing this out at you, the description is easier to see both on a cell phone and on a computer. On a computer web browser, when someone looks at any item on eBay, the description will be there. Bottom of the pictures. The condition won't. You have to click a link to get the actual condition, and that's not always obvious. On a cell phone, both the condition and the description you can't see unless you click something else, but at least on the description on a cell phone, on the eBay app, it does say click here for full description. So eBay makes it easier to see the full description on a cell phone than it does to find the condition. And I think we have to change gears a little. I think we have to add something to our listing process. I suggest you do this too, or tell me why we shouldn't. I'm open to reproof and correction. The problem with this is we shouldn't have to do it. eBay should make the condition of any item that's not brand new very obvious, a big red flashing button, but they don't. So given that, I think we have to not only put the condition where we're supposed to in the condition field, I also think we need to copy that down into the description as well, so it's in both places. That's going to add a few seconds to our listing time, not very much. You just highlight the condition and copy, and then you go down to your description and paste it in somewhere. But it adds a little bit of time to our listing, and the more you list, the more you sell, the more money you make, the wealthier you get. Anything that slows down the listing process actually costs us money in the long run. And I think that we have to do this, or else we're going to continue to get returns that the buyer just didn't know there is a condition field that they can click and then finally find on a cell phone. I believe we will have more buyers actually see the condition that we write if we copy it down into the description. Now let me show you a listing and show you how I'm doing it. I'm selling this Stravinsky Rite of Spring musical score, and so normally, and by the way, thanks eBay for, before my buyer can read the description, thank you eBay for showing a bunch of my competitors selling sheet music. Thanks for showing all my competitors goods here before my buyer can actually read about what they're looking at of mine. So the seller notes here, gently used oversized condition volume. Now, you probably know that if you click here, you can see this. Again, on a web browser, it's easier to see a condition, but why are you calling it seller notes, eBay? Put condition in bold red letters or something so the buyer knows when they get here, condition, click. They don't really, they kind of look through the item specifics and see seller notes and they just keep on going. They don't realize, why in the world does eBay call condition, or when we're filling out a listing, it's called the condition field, but when we're looking at that listing, once it's live, it's called seller notes. Here's what I said about this one, gently used oversized softcover. We'll probably find typos here, and I really hate typos. I almost always find them when I'm showing you something like this. It's really embarrassing to me. It means a lot to me that I'm accurate, but gently used oversized softcover volume with both covers well attached and only minor handling and bumps showing on the covers. No writing or major flaws observed. No tears, no rips, no major foxing, no soils, no odors, and no missing or torn pages noted. Now, I like to do these no lines in my condition, all uppercase letters, no, no. In other words, there might be something wrong with what I'm selling, but I'm going to figure out other things that aren't wrong with it and just say, this isn't wrong with it, this isn't wrong with it. So if you see some other buyer's item that's similar and you're comparing us, they might have some of these problems. They might have a tear or two. They might have foxing, which is the darkening, aging of paper over time. It kind of looks like stains, but it's just a brown discoloration of paper that happens. They might have soils. They might have odor. Maybe seller didn't even think to tell the buyer about this. And so the buyer doesn't know if your competitor has all this. So no matter what's wrong with an item of mine, I almost always try to come up with a bunch of no's. That's a little condition tip for you to say, there's a lot not wrong with this. Even if there's something wrong with it, there's a lot not wrong with it. And I think this adds to an effective condition to get your buyer's interest. But all pages are tight and intact, the music, notations, and all the text are crisp. So there's really not much wrong with this at all. Just really the only thing, minor handling and bump showing on the cover. A bump on a book or a portfolio like this one, that is a bump. A lot of people would call that a curl, and a curl is not wrong, but it's been bumped. And in book terminology, that's called a bump, and that's okay to say bump on things like that, minor bumps. But this is the way a buyer will see this on a web browser, and on a cell phone, they won't see any of that. They won't even see anything. They won't see gently used, read more. They won't see that. You have to really click a couple of places to get through the condition if you're looking at this on a cell phone. But a buyer will on a web browser and on a cell phone get to the description easier. That's why in my description, I have started doing the following. After a little bit of description, I say the same thing. I copied from seller notes and pasted it into my description. I think we have to start doing that to help ensure the buyer, and see I bold-faced the word condition and the colon here. I think the buyer needs to know the condition in both places. Now, if the buyer says, well, I'm returning this because it's got bumps on the corners, not big ones, but I expected a perfect one, and you didn't tell me there weren't bumps on the corners, and this is less excuse that a buyer will have to return something. Yeah, I showed it to you twice, both in the seller notes and also in the description. And eBay is more likely to not cause a return to go against you if the buyer calls this item not as described whenever you described it in two places. So what do you think? Is it worth it to you to copy the condition and put it in the description? It is for me. I think from now on, that's the only way I will do every listing. Even though there's a field for condition, I'm going to put the condition here. My buyer has less excuse, and it's not really the buyer's total fault. Come on, eBay. If I'm selling something used, I want you to tell my buyer easily how to look at the condition that I went to great lengths to describe, because eBay, in your help screens, you're saying, always tell the condition, be very accurate. Don't understate any flaws. eBay goes through all of that, and then they make it almost impossible for a new eBayer to find, especially on a cell phone where more sales happen than on a computer.